Well, good morning. This is Joan with the Joan Yurkovich Show, 910 KINA. And we're here with a guest from Salina, and his name is Basvic, and he is a professional MMA fighter. We didn't know we had so many talented, interesting people in this town. But before I get on to my interview with Base, I want to tell you to stay tuned because we also have another interesting segment in the last half of the show with talking about one of the healthcare professionals here in town about obesity. So Base, we've known each other for a few years, and I actually knew you first as an actor. So you're a multi-talented guy.
Thank you.
But tell me a little bit about how you got started in this MMA fighting.
Okay, well, obviously I had a common interest in it growing up from like ages 11 on, and it was really inspired by martial arts movies.
Bruce Lee, I
Bruce Lee, Van Damme, Seagal, Chuck Norris, all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents weren't going to pay for me to do any karate, so I had to practice that stuff in the yard and on bullies and stuff. And and a lot of time it didn't always turn out so great because you can't really learn how to fight watching TV. It's really
so you'd actually like watch the TV or replay the videos and try
I'd
to
see what they're doing. Yeah, or just to go outside.
11 years old, you weren't very big.
No.
Just a little kid with all these dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But then you actually did move into a bit more training before you got into this actual fighting that you're doing.
Yeah. When I was in my 20s, early 20s, a boxing gym came to town. Well, see, I was originally inspired by a UFC fighter back when the UFC really wasn't very popular.
Really?
Yeah, because everybody thought it was all the wrestlers and the jiu-jitsu guys that were dominating the fights, because it was all about style back then and not really mixed together like it is today.
Right.
And
what were they calling it? Because MMA stands for what?
It stands for mixed martial arts.
Okay.
But before that, and it's still called, it's pretty much the same thing. It's NHB, no holds bar.
Oh,
and that's more, that sounds more brutal.
It does.
But in actual, when it comes down to it, it's all the same,
Uh-huh.
And it was Vitor Belfort. He was a Brazilian guy, and he was really young, and he was just this phenomenal athletic fighter, and he was tearing guys up with boxing skills. And it was, I was like, wow, people can win in this sport just being a striker. Because, I never wrestled in high school like I wish I would have. And I was like, wow, and I was a self-taught striker.
And you say striker, you mean boxer?
A boxer,
okay.
Kicker.
Oh, kicking and boxing.
Okay. Knees and elbows, those are more brutal. But then a boxing gym came to Salina, and I obviously jumped on that opportunity and trained with that for about a couple of years.
Did you actually get into some boxing?
Oh yeah, I had about 12 matches. And it was a very interesting experience. It was a lot of hard work. I ran 3 to 4 miles a day, and it was 3 hours training every night. This coach wouldn't let us have a break unless it was a weekend.
Wow.
And
so
that was my first real ring experience.
Yeah.
A lot of martial arts guys, like karate and taekwondo guys, they're great. They're great instructors, and I ain't gonna. It just depends on the instructor. What like ring experience really makes a difference, and a lot of traditional martial artists don't understand that. They think that there's a big difference between the ring and the streets, and really what it comes down to is the realistic training you've had, like going up against a trained sparring partner in a ring,
versus someone who's more of a street
versus someone that's just
thug almost, or
a
just
street thug, or just somebody that knows how to throw a couple karate kicks and never really experienced what it's like to have a guy throw 3 or 4 fast combination punching, kicking techniques at you, and whether the psychology of it, of dealing with it, and it's a lot.
Well, so you've had actually a pretty stellar record for your career.
Yeah,
you have.
okay.
Your amateur record is 8 wins, 2 losses, and your professional is a 2-win, 1 loss. I mean, you're well ahead of the game. So you think this was an advantage that you had some of this sparring training, and you didn't just come from martial arts?
Okay, well, after the boxing scene, I met some old friends that I grew up with. You know Jeremy Feist.
Yeah, Jeremy.
And I hadn't seen him
That's
in
how
years.
I met you, actually.
Yeah, that's right. And his uncle ran a martial arts dojo, and his uncle is the most open-minded traditional martial arts guy I've ever met. And what I mean by that is most traditional martial arts instructors are very closed-minded, and they have all the answers, and like, you know, they don't tolerate or accept like certain styles, like boxing or something, and you know, they're just.
So they have their standards and stuff, and that's what they're going to stick to.
Yeah, and they're
not versatile at all.
No.
They're willing to entertain some different moves or systems.
And Jeremy's uncle would allow us to throw on the gloves and box and spar, and would allow us to wrestle. And most karate, taekwondo guys don't let you do that, or even don't let you do that till you get to like a certain belt. So it was kind of like their only mixed martial arts place in this town at the time, and we just practiced it for fun. You know, we just did it for fun. It was a passion to us, and then I obviously met my old trainer, mentor, Jamin Hotz. He's been on this radio show before, and he taught me a lot. I mean, he taught me a lot.
Now, was he himself a pro fighter at
yes,
the time?
Yeah, and it wasn't from around here. He'd been around the country and even up to Hawaii and trained with some of the best guys in the world. And that's where I learned my ground fighting from. And I trained with him for about 3 years in that.
Now, what is ground fighting?
It's where, you know, like, it's when you're on the ground, you learn how to control your opponent.
Now, when you're on the mat.
When you're on the mat, and you can either submit them by making them tap out with a.
And like for anybody who's listening that doesn't know what tap out means.
Well, they give up by hitting the floor themselves, or sometimes they can scream tap.
Okay.
It's just like when you can make a guy submit, when you can make a man that's been training to fight you submit like that. This goes to show total dominance over your opponent.
What a rush! What an adrenaline rush to succeed like that. Because is that essentially then you've won the match when they tap out?
Yes, absolutely. And
yeah, and so you know they succeed, or you know when they tap out, is it like just 2 taps and it's like it's kind of like I give up or I can't take this.
The referees make it really clear at the fighter meetings before the event that, you know, even if it's just 1 tap.
Okay.
Just be careful when you're doing something, because guys will throw fits and say that they were just trying to get their positioning and
they bump the floor.
They bump the floor, or sometimes guys even really tapped out, but they'll still pretend like they didn't.
Yeah, you know. Exactly, because they needed just a couple breaths in there before you come at them again.
And then there's the beating them into submission. And some of those guys are just amazing at their ground and pound.
Wow.
And it's just scary watching some, because I mean, really, depending on your positioning, you can actually hit quite harder when you're on top of somebody, bringing down.
You know, Base, I was on your website looking at some of your fights, and you know, we've talked about this before, that I didn't even know if I could ever personally come and watch you fight, because I don't even like violent movies, and I had to turn away. You know, I know there was one where the poor guy, when you were done with him and you were the victor, his poor face looked a little like mush to me.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's just, and there was another one, I went to your YouTube highlights, and there was one where you were on a yellow mat, and you probably remember it just from the color of the mat, and where you did a left kick to his head, and I swear you knocked the guy out. And they rushed I would assume the medic or the doctor, the side doctor rushed in. Did that guy get really hurt?
No, I was talking to him that night. That's interesting you bring that up, because that was probably the fight that actually got people very, I mean, that was the beginning of MMA for Salina. I mean, that was the first event in this town.
Oh, that was actually here in Salina.
And that actually inspired, and that actually inspired a lot of newcomers.
Well, the crowd hugely reacted. You watched that highlight video.
Not to sound, you know, I'm not trying to sound like big time or nothing, but that kick actually smacked so loud and echoed.
Oh wow.
That's like the only fight anybody remembers from that event.
interesting that you say that. I mean, you know, no, that's not arrogant or anything to say that, because that's the business you're in. You know?
Right.
And I know you treat it as a career, and you support your family with it. So, but so this guy, you say, wasn't hurt per se, because you were talking to him later that night. But people can get hurt in this business.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and then I have to think so much about you wanting to be an actor in this face of yours. Is there ever any concern you're going to end up like a Mickey Rourke with your nose beaten up so many times? He doesn't even look like what he used to. And I'm sure you're familiar with who Mickey Rourke is. And he actually was a pro boxer for a while. Right.
And he didn't. I don't know how much he boxed, but the thing is, boxing, you take more damage to the face, and if anything, believe it or not, than you would in an actual MMA fight. Is, you know, studies
so now,
show, but
okay. So you're telling me then, when you're ground and pound, what'd you call that? Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Ground and pound. Are you not trying to pound at their face?
Oh yeah.
Well, you are?
Yes. The thing is, the ref is pretty good about stopping the fights. They're really concerned about the safety of the athletes, and like, you know, you rock a guy really good in mixed martial arts, and he shows no signs of, you know, he shows, like, you know, sometimes guys will get hit so bad that they'll fall like they died, like limp.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought that one guy did in that Salina fight.
Oh yeah. I actually remember his eyes.
He had to go out for a while.
His eyes rolled up in his head. I thought he was faking me out, so I kind of hesitated for a second. But anyway, but the refs are pretty good.
Right. I saw you on the video. Guess what you did next? You knew you pretty much had it, or maybe it was just the editing or the way I watched the video. But tell me what your signature winner move is, because I think you've got a signature move. When you win a fight, I saw you on so many of the winning fights on your videos. What do?
Jump up on the cage?
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, sometimes I'll stand up on it.
You're worried about being arrogant, saying something here about that kick, you know.
Yeah, if I wasn't so scared of backflips, I had to try them.
Well, you know, and a couple times one time I saw you falling backwards, so you had to jump off.
Yeah.
So you thought about just, because that's pretty high up. How many? 6 feet at least?
Oh, yeah, well, it's taller than me, so, yeah. And it's just, you know, just the thrill of, you know, jumping up there and, you know.
Well, and you got to have a little balance, because that ledge,
exactly.
first
it's
of all, you know,
balance.
we know you're physically fit, or you couldn't be doing being a pro fighter.
Right.
But you know, you got to jump up there, and you just kind of leap up there, and then you stand on this thing, which is like a tightrope, and you raise your arms in the air. It's a perfect signature move. Yeah. And of course, be honest, I haven't watched other fights. Do other fighters do something like that, or is that your signature?
Oh yeah, guys. Like I actually seen one. It's one of my favorite fighters. He's actually considered pound for pound best fighter in the world. I seen Anderson Silva do it once, and he was actually even up on his toes. That's how balanced that guy is, and guys will do backflips off of him. And it's just it's crazy.
So that's kind of something you might see at those fights.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Well, we're going to go ahead and go to a break. There's a lot more to talk about here. I want to hear some more, a little bit about, you know, maybe some of your training and what you do. And, you know, I know there's some celebrity that goes along with this. And I think some of that got caught on the video, where you kind of question, you've got so many, quote, friends, but you wonder if they're real friends. And then also want to talk about, you know, the intensity that you bring to the ring, but then you're just really, from what I know, kind of a nice guy. So maybe we'll blow your cover here and talk about that. Okay. Well, we'll be back shortly with the Joan Yurkovich Show on 910 KINA. Are you a nice guy? You are a nice guy.
Yeah, I've been told by some
Or was that
people.
stuff in your bio just kind of for show?
Sorry about the key thing.
Is it pretty loud?
It was. It was just my automatic reaction.
Sorry.
No.
Well, that's her job. Yeah. We have people, their cell phones have gone off. We don't get too worried about it. It's, you know, it makes it sound like a live interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
It was just my automatic reaction. I wanted him to hand them to me.
Sorry.
No.
When's the last you had a trainer? Because you're without right now, sort of?
Pretty much.
You're kind of just working back toward that?
It would have been probably the last time I fought or competed. There's a guy in this town that started a place.
Maybe even go into...
It was Jason Tappan. Have you ever heard of him? He's a salon.